Joan Rivers' career ended with one business agreement. She left for a Fox show in 1986. Her mentor excommunicated her forever for betraying her. TV stations skipped her show. No celebrities visited. Within months, Fox fired her. 3 months later, her spouse committed suicide. Even in her darkest hour, false interviews mocked her sorrow. Joan Rivers was penalized by Hollywood for breaking the rules. Born in Brooklyn on June 8, 1933, Joan Alexandra Malinsky became Joan Rivers. Russian immigrants, her father, Dr. Meyer Malinsky, was a respected doctor who enjoyed jokes. Joan grew raised in tranquil Doctors Row, Brooklyn, with her Jewish family and older sister. Kids rode bikes freely, and everyone knew one other. Joan always wanted more, even if Brooklyn was safe and familiar. She couldn't wait to leave Brooklyn and enter the spotlight in Manhattan, which seemed fantastic. Joan's drive arrived early. She sent MGM Studios a framed photo of herself at 8 years old to get noticed. The first-grade teachers saw something peculiar about her. They wrote on her report card that she loved acting and wanted to excel. She also reportedly talked too much, which made her famous. Joan played in plays and became vice president of her high school's acting club at 16. Her biting humor and ardent determination to succeed were shaped by her immigrant upbringing and worldview. Joan attended Connecticut College after high school, but moved to Barnard College in New York City. She acted in student plays while taking difficult classes. She earned Phi Beta Kappa honors in 1954 for her English literature and anthropology degree after working hard. Although she loved performing, Joan followed a V-More tradition after graduation. He became a chain store buyer and married the owner's son. Joan immediately discovered that a normal existence wasn't enough after 6 months of marriage. She still wanted to perform and felt she had to try again. As Joan Malinsky, a teenage New Yorker fighting to live, Joan Rivers became the daring, sharp-tongued comedian everyone knows. At 25, she worked many jobs to pay her bills in 1958. She served customers at Bond apparel stores, guided Rockefeller Center tours, and wrote and proofread for an ad firm. Tony Rivers, her agent, told her she needed a stage name, changing her life. Promptly chose Joan Rivers since it seemed more intriguing. She later said that a stage name helped her perform in raucous nightclubs. She said Joan Rivers was her party dress. She remained Joan Malinsky, frightened, bewildered, and doubtful. This difference between the bold comedian on stage and the insecure lady behind the scenes would persist her entire life. From the start, show business seemed to repel her. Despite graduating from Barnard College in 1954, her hopes of becoming a serious actress faded. Her first attempt on The Tonight Show with Jack Paar failed miserably. The disaster reportedly pushed back her career. Joan had a tough routine for 7 years following that. She took the train from Larchmont to New York City, had her headshots in cheap photo booths, and spent hours reading through theater ads at Howard Johnson while drinking cheap coffee. By 1965, she was 31, yet the industry was considering her washed up. Other young comedians like Woody Allen, Richard Pryor, and George Carlin were getting major breaks, played in small places where nobody cared. Her first marriage also ended, adding to her misery. Joan stood out because she didn't give up when every door closed. All of this happened before she established her comedy voice. Joan initially didn't sure what kind of comic she wanted to be. So anxious for stage time, she tried anything. She performed as Pepper January and used TV gags. Her first paid employment was in a Boston strip club with bored and distracted customers. Definitely not glamorous. She didn't impress club owners either. Fred Weintraub, who ran The Bitter End, remembers that the audience didn't respond to her chances. He put her in Jim, Jake, and Joan, a comedic trio, hoping she would do better. But it collapsed rapidly. Even performing at the Duplex, a small cabaret, was difficult. She tried to perform hilarious tunes, but the club owner told her to talk to the crowd. She tried improvisation at Chicago's Second City in 1961, but the male actors didn't appreciate her ambition. They didn't want large laughter, and she didn't want to retreat. It was tough and competitive, but Joan had to improve her timing, strengthen her skin, and start the rapid, fearless style. That would make her famous. Joan Rivers struggled for years to succeed. Each of her 7 auditions over 3 years ended in failure. At 31, many in the industry thought she had missed her chance. They thought she was washed up, but February 17, 1965, altered everything. She earned another chance on Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show. She flopped before when Jack Paar hosted, but this time seemed different. Carson invited her to sit with him after her performance. That was big back then, and Johnny Carson told her she'd be a star in front of millions. That moment changed her life. Critics suddenly adored her. Time magazine compared her to Woody Allen, calling her witty about everything, yet maintained her style. Within weeks, Joan Rivers went from floundering to being one of America's most sought-after comedians. She was booked for bigger gigs and hired as a writer for The Tonight Show, and for the first time, the door opened. Rivers returned to The Tonight Show over the years. More than a guest she was. NBC confirmed it on September 1983. Joan Rivers became Carson's permanent visitor, at the spot with other comedians before, but she had approximately 100 appearances and nobody could touch her. She hosted the show 190 times before leaving in 1986. Joan would be direct later. She said NBC would never allow a woman host full-time since she wasn't a danger to Johnny, but she broke a barrier few women had dared to cross and made history again. In July 1984, when she presented The Tonight Show's inaugural stereo broadcast. Although only one New York station played it in stereo, it was a huge step forward. Joan rose to fame in Las Vegas and on TV. Her 43-year strip career was remarkable. She often joked that she was the strip's slut since she worked for anyone. She was pioneering beneath the jokes. In 1969, she performed alongside John Davidson at the Riviera in Las Vegas. Her 1972 Caesars Palace debut made her famous. Joan refused to look stupid for laughs, unlike her predecessors. She boasted, "I was the first to advise, strive to look good." For years, she headlined with Diana Ross and Anne Margaret. Unheard of for a female stand-up comedian then. Working with the Smothers Brothers and Gary Shandling, she shined at Caesars from 1983 until 1991. Despite not performing frequently, she returned to the Venetian in 2012 for her final appearances. Merely 3 years after her Tonight Show debut showed she wasn't merely a stand-up. Her 1968 daytime talk show was That Show with Joan Rivers. Each episode has a theme. She started with jokes, then invited a celebrity and an expert to discuss it. Johnny Carson was her first guest. Jerry Lewis, Don Rickles, and Joel Grey followed. It only lasted 2 years, although subsequent chat programs copied its model for decades. Joan broke the mold and made running shows normal for women in a time when few could. The phrase became part of American culture forever. Can we talk? The 1980s saw it start in Las Vegas. Joan made a nasty Elizabeth Taylor weight joke. When the audience gasped, she stopped. Say, "We discuss here?" It was perfect. 3 simple phrases that transported individuals to a private conversation. That phrase defined her style. She didn't want to lecture. She wished you would laugh with her like close friends exchanging secrets. She died in 2014, but those words live on. Rabbi Sarah Schendelman said Joan's legacy went beyond comedy. It connected her to others. Can we talk? Not just a line. It encouraged honesty, humor, and fearlessness. Joan Rivers made a life-changing decision in early 1986. She substituted for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show about 100 times a year. She was his designated successor. A secret was happening behind the scenes. New young Fox network head Barry Diller offered Joan a late-night chat program, a first for a woman, a chance to make history. She hid the chats from Carson for fear he would stop her. Joan tried to phone Carson the weekend before the agreement got public. She tried calling him 8 times but got no response. The news arrived too late. Carson felt stabbed backward. The man who proudly presented her to America now considered her a traitor. This one moment ended their 23-year friendship, and they never spoke again. The Fox transaction was huge. Joan signed a 3-year, $10 million contract, worth more now. The deal has another aspect. Fox hired Edgar Rosenberg, her husband, as the show's producer, despite his inexperience. Joan couldn't decline. She signed the paperwork, expecting a brighter future. The Late Show created history on October 9, 1986, when Joan Rivers began it. First woman to host late-night network chat show. Fox paid her $10 million and made huge promises. They wanted her show to rival Carson's Tonight Show. Carson wouldn't make it simple. He banned Joan's guests, making it nearly impossible to book famous stars. Devoted to Carson, some TV stations, including one near his hometown, refused to run her show. Others declined since they didn't like her style. Fox allowed affiliates to skip the show to suit everyone. Decision shattered its reach. Within months, ratings plummeted. What started as a TV milestone quickly sank. Fox once considered Joan their crown treasure, but now they wanted her gone. The situation was worse behind closed doors. Edgar Rosenberg, Joan's husband, produced the show. Fox initially agreed, but when ratings dipped, they blamed him. Joan was told to fire Edgar to stay. Joan declined. On May 15, 1987, Fox dismissed them both. The last episode was chaotic. The kit had toilet paper, slime, and shaving cream. Howie Mandel, Pee Wee Herman, and a young Chris Rock partied with Joan. Even her stage manager dressed as a wild character. Witnessing that final show felt like witnessing someone fight to the end, even though they knew they lost. Later said it felt like they publicized her career execution. Disaster struck again 91 days after their firing. Edgar Rosenberg was discovered dead in a Philadelphia hotel room on August 14, 1987. He overdosed on Valium and died. He contacted Joan the day before to say he was coming home. Hidden behind those words was his struggle. Edgar never fully recovered from his 1984 major heart attack. He tried to fix his life, but friends felt he appeared more broken. A trip to Ireland worsened his intestinal bleeding. He was a shadow at death, his former self. Joan uncovered another nightmare when she examined their accounts following his death. Edgar squandered their money, leaving her $37 million in debt. 8 months later, Joan revealed she nearly committed suicide. She said Spike, her tiny dog, jumped into her lap while she held a revolver. A simple act of love saved her. The world kept being harsh. Although Joan was grieving, GQ published a phony interview with her. It showed her making cruel comments about Edgar's murder, including an allusion to the espionage-convicted Rosenbergs. Ben Stein, a former speechwriter, interviewed Joan without knowing her. He fabricated it. Joan resisted after being humiliated. She sued Stein and GQ for libel. Against all odds, she obtained a settlement and donated it all. But her soul was damaged, had finished. Later stated she felt like a nobody in Hollywood, rejected and humiliated during her worst time. Joan Rivers returned stronger than expected after losing almost everything. Joan Rivers began her show in 1989. It was more than a discussion show. It was her resurrection. In previous years, she was sacked from her Fox late-night show. Edgar Rosenberg, her husband, committed suicide months later. Hollywood abandoned her, blacklisted. Nobody wanted to work with Joan, but she kept going. She returned with a syndicated afternoon show on September 5, 1989. Through PGHM Productions and Tribune Entertainment, she made it. Tribune took over after Paramount aided with the first season. 4 seasons and 1,000 episodes made the show a prominent component of early 1990s television. For years, episodes were unavailable. However, repeats resumed in 2019. By 2021, several episodes were streaming. A new generation saw Joan at her finest, being daring, humorous, and brave. Joan had her most emotional moment in 1990, 3 years after her life disintegrated. She earned a Daytime Emmy for Best Talk Program Host. Her show wasn't nominated for Best Talk Show that night, but she was on stage crying. She said she couldn't find work 2 years ago and was earning less. She told the audience that the honor was for her late husband, Edgar. He started with me. Joan didn't only get a prize, she proved she could survive anything. Johnny Carson barred her from The Tonight Show once she joined Fox. The ban lasted decades until Jimmy Fallon took over, but it didn't matter that night. Joan won her fight back. Joan did numerous public appearances while rebuilding her career. She was a hit at Hollywood Square's Center Square with her quick wit. She gave one of her most renowned performances, Faceless, around the same time. While her late-night program was failing, she voiced Dot Matrix in Mel Brooks' Spaceballs in 1987. Joan played a wacky, humorous Star Wars role that was unforgettable. Spaceballs became a cult classic after its initial box office failure. Her movie performance demonstrated she could laugh at herself and remain in mainstream culture when everything else was falling apart. Joan went beyond TV and film. Her 1994 move was bold. She co-wrote and acted in Sally Marr and Her Escorts on Broadway. It was inspired by Lenny Bruce's mother, who shaped the famed comic. Criticism of the play varied, but most agreed on one thing. Joan's acting was strong. Some found her captivating. Others called her brave. Despite only 50 performances, the play won her a Tony and Drama Desk nomination for Best Actress. She and her daughter Melissa featured in Tears and Laughter that year. TV movie The Joan and Melissa Rivers Story recounts their survival following Edgar's death. Joan proved she wasn't just a comedian by turning her sadness into art. She was a fighter who made suffering memorable.